You are currently pausing at the precipice of an uncharted territory. It lacks a title, not due to its absence of reality, but because the precise words to articulate this profound shift haven't quite formed in your mind yet. This realization has been brewing silently in the margins of your consciousness, lingering during those restless, sleepless nights. You likely recognize those flashes when you evaluated your existence and experienced a feeling that wasn't exactly sorrow, nor was it yearning. Rather, it mirrored the sensation of standing right on a threshold, neither completely inside nor totally outdoors, simply suspended in the void between. That sensation is far from accidental. It is a profound beacon, and at this very second, in whatever hour you stumbled upon this message, that beacon has peaked at its absolute maximum strength. The cosmos has been delivering whispers to you for weeks, perhaps months, or maybe even longer than you care to admit. They started as subtle nudges, minor course corrections that were easy to brush off, allowing you to slip right back into your comfort zone and return to the predictable narrative of your limitations. But because you kept receiving them, the whispers evolved into shouts. They became undeniable. And now, you are poised at this exact boundary, encountering this specific message at this exact moment. What you must understand is that this isn't mere chance, a random algorithm, or standard digital content delivery. At the fundamental layer of quantum existence, this is an ultimate broadcast before a highly specific opportunity vanishes. The portal that has remained ajar throughout this entire chapter of your journey is reaching the end of its cycle. It shuts at the 0 hour. We aren't talking about numbers on a clock face. The 0 hour represents a cosmic tipping point, the absolute depth of the dark right before a monumental shift. It is the exact fraction of a cycle where the previous paradigm entirely collapses to make way for a fully realized new condition. Every era has its 0 hour, and you are currently breathing through the closing seconds of yours. This message is the vital alert intended for your eyes right before that definitive shift arrives. Let us commence right here, on the brink of this horizon you've been advancing toward without even realizing it. Let's start at the entrance. In quantum physics, there is a concept known as the observer effect, which dictates that merely watching a quantum system fundamentally alters the system itself. A particle resting in a state of superposition occupying countless potential realities simultaneously forces itself into one distinct reality the instant it is witnessed. Prior to being seen, it holds the potential to be absolutely anything. After being seen, it locks into a singular truth. The act of witnessing doesn't just record the world, it actively constructs it. You are currently under observation, not by a human entity, but by something infinitely more precise. The vast quantum matrix of probability that forms the foundation of all matter and energy is watching you right now, and its gaze is highly focused, evaluating one singular metric. Are you prepared to transition from boundless, undefined potential into a solid, defined existence? Are you ready to stop being everything you might be and become exactly who you are? The cosmos does not dispatch these notices out of malice or as a threat. It operates like a master navigator issuing one final coordinate check before a vessel enters a narrow strait. The warning isn't because the channel is dangerous, but because navigating it demands absolute exactness. The time frame to align yourself correctly is incredibly narrow. If you fail to utilize this opening, another won't appear until the subsequent grand cycle completes, which is a long time from now. The core alert is this: you are currently standing inside that narrow time frame. You have occupied this bizarre transitional phase where outdated versions of yourself feel suffocatingly tight. It is a period of profound uncertainty regarding your identity, yet underpinned by a deep-seated intuition that the person you are evolving into is significantly more authentic than anyone you've been before. This transitional era has a definitive expiration date, and that deadline is now. Therefore, before we delve deeper, before we step through the true core of this broadcast, I require you to undertake a task. I need you to anchor yourself in your current reality. Set aside philosophical musings, ground yourself physically and energetically. Absorb the unique texture of this exact juncture in your timeline. Acknowledge the heavy baggage you've been dragging along, and fully embrace the peculiar sensation of being caught in the space between. Tune into that magnetic drag, that undeniable forward momentum urging you toward a doorway you have yet to turn the handle on. Do you sense its weight? That very magnetism is the portal itself, and it currently stands wide open. Let us decode the true nature of this threshold and the urgent message the cosmos has been broadcasting. Why is this exact juncture the final alert before the opportunity vanishes? In the realm of physics, we observe what is known as a phase transition, the sudden leap a system takes from one physical state to an entirely different one. Liquid freezes into solid ice. Water boils into invisible vapor. Crucially, these metamorphoses do not occur at a crawl. They trigger at highly specific milestones of pressure and heat. They happen the instant a system's stored energy hits a tipping point, forcing the entire architecture to completely restructure in a single, unified flash. It is never piecemeal. The entire organism crosses the boundary simultaneously. Human awareness operates on the exact same principles. This is where outdated self-improvement paradigms miss the mark. Traditional wisdom preaches slow, incremental evolution, the idea of getting fractionally better each day through compounded habits and linear strides. While there is a sliver of truth to that preparation, the quantum framework of reality reveals a deeper mechanism. The daily grind, the gradual insights, and the slow expansion of your perspective do not constitute the actual awakening. Rather, they are merely the gathering of kinetic energy required to spark the change. It is simply the slow heating of the liquid, building toward the precise temperature necessary to ignite a total systemic overhaul. The actual metamorphosis is anything but slow. It is an abrupt, monumental leap across a boundary. It is a singular heartbeat where your reality pivots entirely. The version of yourself that has been diligently preparing and absorbing lessons finally hits the exact thermal limit needed for a quantum jump, stepping out of an old existence and firmly into a new one. All at once, the entire matrix resets. However, phase shifts demand a catalyst. A system can sit at 99 degrees indefinitely, resting just below the boiling point, yet it won't radically change until it secures that final, fractional degree. Once it does, it requires no motivation, persuasion, or readiness. The laws of physics simply take command. You are currently resting at 99 degrees. You've been stockpiling the spiritual friction for this leap far longer than you realize. Every agonizing heartbreak that cleared your path, every uncomfortable truth you confronted instead of fleeing, every quiet revelation in the dark, and every outdated identity you shed to keep walking. These were all acts of gathering power. You have merely been turning up the heat. The universe is issuing this ultimate alert because it perceives the blind spot in your vision. It recognizes you are merely 1 degree away from boiling over. It sees that only absolute surrender to the momentum separates you from the new paradigm. This alert is not a threat. It is strictly about timing. If you stall while resting at the precipice of a phase shift, the accumulated heat evaporates. Your internal system cools down, the critical window shuts, and the moment is lost. While your foundational growth remains, the hyper-specific cosmic alignment required for this instant leap disappears, forcing you to wait for a distant future cycle to realign. That future cycle is not today. Today is the open window. If this broadcast has intercepted your timeline at the exact right moment, pause to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your arrival here was mathematically precise. Now, we must examine the landscapes bordering this threshold. We need to define exactly what you are abandoning and what you are stepping into. Making this leap requires absolute clarity of both territories. You must recognize the gateway for what it truly is. Not a barricade, a hazard, or a dead end, but a literal passageway connecting 2 distinct realms of existence. In your current territory, the side you currently occupy, a fragmented version of yourself, continues to broadcast on a wavelength entirely out of sync with your present life. Understand that this isn't a critique. It is simply the mechanics of physics. During the foundational chapters of your life, You forged a specific framework of convictions, emotional reflexes, and behavioral patterns. At that time, they were immaculately tuned to the environment you inhabited. They functioned flawlessly as the ideal survival software to process the challenges you faced back then. However, your environment morphed. You transformed. Your consciousness broadened, and your capabilities multiplied. Yet, that outdated software engineered for a bygone era continued to hum in the background. It didn't persist because it was beneficial, but simply because that is the nature of programming. Scripts loop. They execute their original coding endlessly until a decisive disruption forces a system upgrade. Right now, those archaic scripts remain active, and you acutely sense their presence. It manifests as that involuntary flinch whenever an unfamiliar opportunity arises. It is the cynical voice that whispers when circumstances seem overly positive. It is the predictable habit of marching right to the brink of a breakthrough, only to invent excuses for a retreat. It is that heavily rehearsed, ingrained narrative, insisting that your deepest desires are permanently out of reach, that the brilliant life you know exists is somehow reserved for everyone except you. That narrative is entirely fabricated. It is nothing more than code. And as long as you remain on this side of the threshold, that code dictates your world. The software manufactures your daily encounters, actively fabricating the proof needed to validate its own existence. This occurs because the quantum observer effect functions precisely this way. It forces infinite potential to crystallize into defined events. If the lens you observe through is tuned to scarcity, the universe has no choice but to manifest restricted results. Again, this isn't blame. It's absolute physics. Physics remains indifferent to guilt. Its sole language is vibration. The urgent memo the cosmos is delivering right now dictates that this obsolete script has overstayed its welcome. This isn't a cosmic reprimand. It's an objective truth. That old framework successfully brought you to this very edge, fulfilling its destiny. Now, in this exact 0 hour, you must allow it to power down permanently so you can cross into your next evolution. Waiting across that boundary is an existence that your current software is completely incapable of rendering. Beyond the gateway lies a dimension of your reality, vibrating at a radically distinct quantum signature. I am not referring to a better life in the shallow, commercialized sense, not just an accumulation of wealth, status, or societal milestones. It is infinitely more exact and profoundly intimate. The only accurate term for it is absolute congruence. It is the tangible, biological sensation of existing in a state of zero friction. You inhabit a structure that demands absolutely no wasted energy to sustain, precisely because it represents the raw, unfiltered truth of your identity. Once you anchor into this foundational frequency, the goals that felt utterly unreachable under the old paradigm transition from mere possibilities into absolute certainties. That is the promise lying beyond the door. Now, we must address the timing. Why today? Why this exact temporal anomaly? Why is the cosmos broadcasting this final alert right now, rather than waiting a few weeks for you to feel more prepared? Quantum mechanics identifies phenomena known as resonance windows. These are brief intervals where a system's internal vibrations perfectly synchronize with the rhythms of its surroundings, triggering a massive magnification in its potential to transform. Picture a child swaying on a playground swing. Applying force at haphazard intervals yields almost zero momentum. However, if you apply that exact same force at the peak of the arc, the precise microsecond your push harmonizes with the existing kinetic energy. The swing surges exponentially higher. The secret to that massive acceleration is purely timing. Human consciousness possesses these exact same windows of resonance. Within the trajectory of human awakening, certain rare intervals emerge where cosmic variables synchronize, rendering a monumental leap effortlessly smooth compared to any normal epoch. In these unique pockets, your gathered momentum, external environment, inner preparedness, and quantum probabilities all fuse into a highly concentrated aperture of magnified capability. A minor exertion that might typically yield a fractional shift will now catapult you exponentially forward. A simple act of letting go, which usually brings minor relief, suddenly triggers a total reinvention of your architecture. You are currently breathing inside one of these precise anomalies. How can you be certain? The proof is woven directly into the fabric of your recent existence. Examine the distinct flavor of the reality you've been navigating lately. Notice the abrupt conclusions, the unexpected dawns, and the way your connections have crystallized, some deepening profoundly, others dissolving entirely, and several unmasking themselves as vastly different from your initial assumptions. Acknowledge the dizzying velocity, the undeniable sensation that your life is accelerating far beyond your comfort zone. Feel the density of time itself. It feels heavier, electric, pregnant with the feeling that a monumental event is looming. That looming presence is the gateway, and this disorienting limbo you've occupied this entire strange phase is the resonance window. Like all such phenomena, it possesses a strict expiration date. Perfect symmetry does not endure infinitely. The unique climate facilitating this effortless leap will soon scatter. This ultimate transmission signifies that the aperture is nearing its final contraction. It isn't locked yet. You remain directly in the crosshairs of maximum potential, where a slight nudge will still trigger massive growth. But this constitutes the absolute final call before the geometry shifts. This is your 0-hour flare. The mandate is clear. Make the leap immediately. Discard the illusion of waiting for tomorrow, for further preparation, or for deeper comprehension. Step through the threshold right now, while the harmony between your current state and your destination is at its absolute peak. The doorway is unlatched. Cross it, however, before we outline the actual mechanics of stepping from the precipice into the void. Allow me to share a narrative, because this transition extends far beyond theoretical quantum mechanics or abstract philosophy. It manifests in the tangible, irreversible reality of human lives. Consider the journey of a woman named Ilara. For the majority of her adulthood, Ilara possessed an elite talent for sheer survival, not merely scraping by, but thriving by every conventional metric. To the outside observer, her reality was a masterpiece of success. She held the logical career, maintained the predictable social ties, and wore a meticulously constructed persona built from the tools and awareness she possessed at the time. Yet, a phantom sensation had haunted her for years, evading precise definition. It was akin to standing in a beautiful room but realizing you were glued to the wrong corner. It mirrored the profound discomfort of wearing an impeccably tailored suit that clearly belonged to a stranger. She was executing a flawless performance in a grand theatrical production, but deep down, she recognized it was merely an act. Over time, she mastered the art of suppressing this intuition. She warped it into a personal failing, convincing herself it was simply a symptom of ungratefulness, inadequacy, or an inability to be content with her hard-won achievements. She weaponized the feeling against herself, labeling it a character defect. To drown out this quiet dissonance, she buried herself under an avalanche of productivity, accolades, and relentless forward momentum, ensuring the inner voice remained muffled by the noise of her busy life, until an unscripted event occurred. It wasn't a catastrophic explosion because that is the peculiar nature of the universe's most profound alerts. These cosmic alerts lack the theatrical flair we typically anticipate. Instead, they slip into our lives silently, disguised as entirely unremarkable, everyday occurrences. For Ilara, the catalyst arrived during a fleeting chat with a virtual stranger. It was a casual interaction in a completely forgettable setting, the sort of passing dialogue that usually fades into nothingness. Yet, this acquaintance casually dropped a phrase so profoundly simple that, on any other day, it would have bounced right off her. But this time, Ilara's consciousness was tuned to a hidden frequency. The sentence pierced her armor, striking a chord that had lain dormant for decades. You are not obligated to keep acting out the script of your current existence. In that heartbeat, the gateway materialized for Ilara. This was no poetic metaphor. She experienced a visceral atmospheric drop identical to the sudden vacuum created when a heavy door is cracked open in an airtight vault. She sensed the literal fabric of her environment altering. She stood at the precipice of a total structural realignment, one that wouldn't demolish her achievements, but rather recalibrate them around a far more authentic axis. Yet, crashing against that realization was the overwhelming instinct to recoil, the seductive urge to whisper, "Fascinating, but perhaps tomorrow," the reflex to demand more data, absolute guarantees, and more preparation time before taking the plunge. She knew this paralyzing hesitation intimately. It had sabotaged her at every prior crossroads, tricking her into retreating back to the familiar while the portal slammed shut, locking her endlessly in that phantom wrong corner. However, this exact juncture carried an unprecedented weight. She could sense the temporary nature of this anomaly, just as clearly as one smells the ozone right before a massive thunderstorm. The static electricity of an expiring opportunity was undeniable. She recognized that this specific portal possessed a distinct gravity, and it was preparing to lock. Consequently, Ilara broke her oldest habit. She actively arrested her instinctual retreat, anchoring herself at the lip of the void. She inhaled the massive gravity of her past and the unwritten future, refusing to flinch away from either. Then, she stepped through. There was no cinematic explosion or sudden flash of omniscience. It was merely the quiet, resolute act of shifting her physical momentum forward into an unlit hallway. And yet, everything fundamentally inverted. The transformation was instantaneous, though initially invisible to the naked eye. On a quantum level, her energetic broadcast altered, forcing her reality to begin molding to a brand new blueprint. She hadn't erased her old survival coding. She had simply migrated to a dimension where that obsolete code was utterly useless. Over the ensuing months, her external world organically caught up. Exhausting relationships pruned themselves away effortlessly like dead autumn leaves, while authentic connections rooted deeper. Her career ceased to be a theatrical chore, shifting into a genuine extension of her true essence. And finally, that lingering ghost, the haunting sensation of occupying the wrong space, evaporated completely. Her life didn't magically become flawless. Obstacles, ambiguities, and hard times still existed. However, the fundamental difference was that she now occupied her rightful space. She was finally broadcasting on her native wavelength. The portal was firmly in her rearview mirror. The previous paradigm had completely disintegrated, leaving only her newly evolved reality intact. A genuine leap across a boundary is strictly a one-way street. That is the immutable law of phase shifts. Once water boils into vapor, it cannot simply choose to revert back into liquid. Its core energetic signature has mutated. Its molecular architecture is permanently scrambled. The new form becomes the permanent baseline. You might introduce fresh variables to spark a subsequent evolution, but you can never undo the leap that just happened. A crossed threshold cannot be uncrossed. Ilara recognized this absolute truth the moment she stepped through. Yet, the true shock was the absence of grief. She had anticipated mourning her former identity, but instead, she was flooded with an indescribable wave of pure relief. It was the immense relief of dropping an exhausting charade. It was the profound peace of watching that obsolete software finally terminate its last loop. She had discovered her baseline state and existence requiring absolutely zero friction to maintain because it was the purest, unfiltered manifestation of her soul. She locked into her true foundation, and the entire voyage required nothing more than a single inhale. One deep breath at the precipice. One breath, followed by the conscious choice to shift her center of gravity forward rather than retreating. That exact same maneuver is waiting for you right now, within this closing aperture, during this ultimate 0 hour of your personal timeline. Just one breath. If you currently recognize yourself in Ilara's shoes, teetering at the edge of an exhausting theatrical act, acutely aware of the dissonance between your forced output and your authentic vibration, there is a dedicated blueprint designed for this exact leap. The sealed timeline intricately details the entire 5-stage progression, guiding you from initial awareness, across the boundary, and into an absolute harmonic lock. It maps every single micro-shift of this metamorphosis. You can access it via the link in the description. Let's pause for a moment of reflection. Have you ever experienced a defining crossroad in your own history? A split second where you possessed the unshakable conviction that your reality had permanently mutated and turning back was biologically impossible? Share that experience in the comments section. Do not dismiss it as trivial, verbalizing that memory is a crucial mechanism of the crossing itself. Let us dissect the anatomy of that single breath. We must outline the exact, mechanical protocol of boundary jumping that the quantum framework of mind offers you during this anomaly. This leap is not magic. It does not exceed your grasp. It does not demand decades of meditation, flawlessly aligned stars, or some catastrophic worldly catalyst to initiate. It is a highly repeatable exercise, and its foundation is pure recognition. Phase 1 of this protocol demands that you identify the portal. You must perceive it exactly for what it is, a literal conduit linking two distinct modes of existence. Strip away the illusion that it is a barricade, a hurdle, a hazard, or a vortex of chaos. See it purely as a passageway that has patiently remained ajar in your world, merely anticipating the instant your internal vibration synchronizes with the territory beyond it. If your environment permits, shut your eyes. If not, simply relax your focus and redirect your awareness internally. Scan your inner landscape for this doorway. Locate that exact coordinate within your consciousness. Bypass your intellect and analytical mind. Hunt for it using raw, visceral sensation. Pinpoint the exact spot where you perceive the precipice, where you can literally feel the magnetic draft pulling you from the unknown. This sensation is intimately familiar to you. It has been your silent roommate. It is the hum vibrating beneath your anxiety. It is the void your constant distractions attempt to mask. It is the silent interrogator that surfaces in the dead of night, wordlessly demanding to know if you are prepared. Isolate that feeling right now. Refuse the urge to dissect it, label it, or debate its authenticity. Merely sense it. Approach it exactly as you would blindly search for a solid surface in a pitch-black room, not by logically deducing its location, but by stretching your senses outward until you encounter resistance. The portal exists. You sense its gravity right this second. This brings us to phase 2, acknowledging the dual landscapes. Absorb the atmosphere of your current side. Register the exact texture of your present reality. Do not critique it or pass judgment. Simply act as an impartial witness. Acknowledge the crushing density of that outdated programming. Examine exactly how this archaic coding has dictated your life. The tightening, the boundaries, the predictable habit of withdrawing. Quantify the heavy toll required to keep this obsolete version alive. Do this dispassionately. Analyze it with the clinical exactness of a researcher reviewing raw data, devoid of sentimental attachment. Acknowledge the sheer mass of the baggage you are holding. Next, project your consciousness across the threshold. Do not force a vivid mental image or try to architect the exact logistics of your future. Those specifics will materialize later. Right now, you are strictly hunting for a vibration. Seek out the texture of the realm waiting beyond this barrier. Hunt for that profound relief. Search for your authentic baseline. Imagine the sensation of occupying the most effortless, energetically optimized version of yourself, completely free from the exhausting theatrics of your past. Picture the quietude of that old software finally shutting down. Do you sense it? Even if it is just a microscopic ripple in your awareness, a distant echo from across the void, it is absolute reality. This isn't your imagination playing tricks. This is quantum perception. It is your mind's innate ability to read a matrix of probability right before it solidifies into physical matter. You are literally intercepting the reality the cosmos has been endlessly trying to show you. This brings us to phase 3. Validate the alert. Replace any lingering panic with profound appreciation. This ultimate beacon is a cosmic favor, a loud confirmation that the aperture remains unsealed and perfect resonance is still active. Confirm your receipt of this data. Declare it silently or speak it into the room. I accept this coordinate. I recognize the closing window, and I claim my passage right now. Notice the internal recalibration when you make that declaration. Recognizing the alert is a miniature leap in itself. It elevates you from a passive bystander hovering near the portal into an active participant standing squarely on its threshold, seeing the door for exactly what it is. Now we arrive at Phase 4, the pinnacle of this entire protocol, the breath. Simply breathe. No complex techniques are necessary. Draw a deep, deliberate current of air down into your core, letting it rise through your chest to the absolute crest of your lungs, and then slowly, completely empty it out. As you push the air out, evict the old paradigm. Do not use aggression or attempt to forcefully annihilate your past. Just loosen your white-knuckled grip. Allow the outgoing breath to sweep away the wasted energy you spent sustaining that dead architecture. Let the archaic code run its final command and power down permanently. The exhalation is the surrender. Then, on the subsequent inhalation, the one rushing into the vacuum you just created, absorb the dawn of your new existence. It won't arrive with absolute high-definition clarity immediately, but you will absorb its raw frequency as the first true taste of the other side. That single intake of air is the transition. You are breaching the barrier in this exact microsecond, riding the breath through the open gateway. Linger in this space as long as necessary. There is no rushing this process. The leap doesn't require a thunderous crescendo right this second. It is the initiation, the planting of your foot on new soil, with the complete materialization unfolding over the coming hours and days. The only metric that matters is the reversal of your momentum, shifting your trajectory from retreat to advance. You have stopped backing away and started walking through. Remain tethered to your breathing until the recalibration feels complete. Once you detect that subtle internal pivot, open your eyes and anchor your focus back to this broadcast. Because we must dissect the aftermath. We need to explore the exact, pragmatic, quantum mechanical reconstruction of reality that occurs the moment a consciousness successfully survives a phase transition. Let us examine what fundamentally alters when a system crosses to the other side. This structural overhaul is absolute, yet it won't manifest in your physical surroundings overnight. Internally, the mutation is immediate the second you breach the boundary. Your energetic signature alters. The old code is overwritten. Your conscious awareness, the very mechanism responsible for locking quantum potential into concrete events, starts functioning under an entirely alien set of rules. However, your material environment requires a buffer period to align. Grasping this concept is vital. It represents the primary trap for individuals who have legitimately made the leap only to panic when immediate physical proof is absent. They took the step, felt the internal recalibration, and undeniably sensed the transformation, yet their daily life still mirrors their past. Consequently, they mistakenly assume the transition failed, believing they are still trapped behind the door and nothing truly happened. This is a monumental error in logic. Your outward reality perpetually acts as a lagging mirror to your inner vibration. This is a universal constant. The quantum realm crystallizes into physical form with a built-in delay. This isn't due to cosmic inefficiency. Rather, tangible matter possesses heavy inertia. Your historical structures carry immense kinetic momentum. Those outdated loops are deeply entrenched in the physical plane, demanding a transition period to dismantle and rebuild around your newly adopted wavelength. Consider the mechanics of tuning an analog radio. The broadcast doesn't snap to perfect clarity immediately. You encounter a brief span of heavy static. The dying station and the incoming transmission collide, generating turbulent noise and chaotic overlap. The obsolete broadcast stubbornly resists the new tuning. Yet, as the dial locks firmly into place and the fresh wavelength stabilizes, the historical interference fades to zero, and the new voice rings out flawlessly. Following your quantum leap, you are guaranteed to navigate this static. You will endure this phase of friction, the unavoidable chasm between your instant inner mutation and the delayed external catch-up. During this interval, your new vibration is an absolute fact, Yet the ghost of your past remains visible in your day-to-day life. It is the exact moment you will be tested, tempted to declare the breakthrough a mirage, and assume you never actually crossed the threshold at all. Never interpret this turbulence as a sign of failure. The static is the definitive proof of your success. That auditory chaos is the sound of your old programming dying. The friction is the literal dissolution of your prior boundaries. This temporary disorientation is simply the bridge, connecting your former architecture to your future one, a microscopic gateway embedded within the grander crossing. Anchor yourself to your newly claimed wavelength. This is the solitary directive you must follow during the turbulent phase. Hold the line. Do not artificially force it or resort to theatrical positivity. You don't need to live in denial regarding the lingering echoes of your past. Instead, simply persist in executing commands from your newly established operating system. Maintain your vantage point as the new quantum observer. Keep collapsing infinite potential from this elevated vibration instead of backsliding into familiar scarcity. The physical world is mathematically obligated to catch up. The higher frequency always conquers matter, and when the catch-up finally occurs, when your tangible environment forcefully bends to match your inner upgrade, the shift will not be subtle. You will not witness tiny baby steps of improvement bridging your past to your future. Instead, you will be engulfed by an entirely distinct universe. It will materialize as the exact existence that has patiently hovered just beyond the barrier, perfectly assembled, unconditionally accessible, and intensely real. It will feel as if it had been quietly sitting there the entire time, completely invisible to your old, restricted lens. Because the truth is, it was always there. Quantum physics dictates that every conceivable reality runs parallel within the infinite field of potential. The existence waiting for you beyond the door isn't a project under construction. You do not need to invent it, grind tirelessly to earn it, or execute a flawless series of maneuvers to build it piece by piece. It is already fully alive right now within the quantum matrix, existing as an absolute masterpiece. It is simply waiting for your internal vibration to match its own, triggering its instant materialization into your waking life. The threshold itself is that point of vibrational synchronization. Stepping through is the deliberate act of matching your internal core with the pre-existing reality awaiting you. And that is exactly why this cosmic broadcast carries such massive urgency. This explains why this ultimate broadcast demands immediate action rather than future consideration. The specific quantum matrix holding your evolved reality, the existence vibrating at your exact new frequency, is perfectly synchronized with your precise location at this very second. The aperture is unsealed. The environment is flawlessly primed for the wave collapse. The cosmos has been steadily guiding you toward this exact nexus of perfect harmony, and this 0-hour alert is simply the notification that the synchronization is complete. The opportunity to collapse infinite potential into your physical life is currently live. Make the transition immediately. This urgency isn't because your alternate reality will vanish if you hesitate. It permanently resides within the quantum field. Rather, you must cross now because the mathematical odds of pulling it into your physical world are uncharacteristically stacked in your favor. This unique temporal anomaly acts as a massive amplifier, a tiny expenditure of energy that typically yields a microscopic result will currently propel you exponentially. A simple act of yielding, which ordinarily brings minor relief, will currently orchestrate a total systemic overhaul. This ultimate notice is entirely devoid of threat. It is pure leverage. It is reality informing you that the energetic toll to cross is currently at its absolute lowest. The portal is stretched to its maximum width. The trajectory from your current grid to your destination is flawlessly straight. Every ounce of friction, wisdom, and preparation you've hoarded throughout this uncomfortable limbo has peaked at maximum voltage. You possess the exact electrical charge required to bridge the gap. Do not let this battery bleed out. Step over the line today. There is an additional layer to this transmission that supersedes pure quantum mechanics and technical phase shifts. It touches upon a truth that transcends cold physics while remaining scientifically valid. The cosmos actively champions your crossing. I realize assigning emotional investment to a mathematical probability matrix sounds absurd. It borders on projecting human traits onto abstract physics. However, consider this perspective. The foundational fabric of existence is not apathetic toward your awareness. It holds a distinct preference regarding whether you evolve or stagnate. Reality possesses a built-in bias toward growth. This isn't spiritual romanticism. It is verifiable thermodynamics. The arrow of time only fires forward. Entropy demands that systems inherently progress toward higher complexity, deeper organization, and expanded potential. The cosmos is continuously expanding, perpetually becoming, and human consciousness, which serves as the universe's primary tool to witness and comprehend itself, represents the absolute bleeding edge of that expansion. Whenever you breach a new frontier, you are literally the universe expanding its own boundaries. With every upgraded version of your identity you manifest, reality itself evolves into something unprecedented. This inherent trajectory is exactly why these cosmic alerts arrive, why the apertures unseal, and why these final broadcasts are delivered. It isn't because reality will collapse without your participation. Cosmic expansion will proceed regardless. It happens because the fundamental structure of existence is engineered to violently support the elevation of consciousness. These signals aren't foreign commands forced upon you. They are moments of deep internal resonance. It is the universe looking in the mirror of your soul and confirming your readiness. The path is cleared. The deadline is immediate. This is the 0-hour flare. It signals prime preparedness, not impending doom. It is the announcement that the culmination of your life's work is accessible today. That magnetic, authentic iteration of yourself, the baseline state that requires absolutely zero theatrical energy to sustain, is waiting just millimeters past this doorway, perfectly aligned in this current window. The entrance is unguarded. Before we proceed, I must address a very specific phenomenon. It is a highly particular sensation that I am acutely aware is gripping many of you as you absorb this very broadcast. There is a specific, deeply ingrained mechanism that has sabotaged your progress every single time you've neared a breakthrough in the past. It is the absolute terror that none of this is real. It is the paralyzing dread that this portal is merely a mirage, that your upgraded reality is nothing but a fantasy, and that this intuitive pull is just a desperate projection of your desires rather than a genuine observation of what is actually there. You are haunted by the thought that if you actually commit, if you genuinely surrender your historical baggage and step into this fresh vibration, you will plunge into an empty void. You fear discovering that the quantum matrix is barren, that the beautiful existence you sensed was just a fairy tale you spun to comfort yourself. You worry that taking the leap will leave you marooned in a desolate limbo, entirely disconnected from your past, with absolutely nothing waiting for you in the future. Understand that this panic is the threshold's ultimate security system. Every profound transition triggers this exact brand of terror right at the precipice of commitment. It is your obsolete coding making its final, desperate plea for survival. This is the most cunning tactic your outdated software deploys, because it expertly masquerades as profound wisdom. It mimics the voice of logic, prudence, and self-preservation, the cautious whisper of a wounded soul trying to prevent you from making a catastrophic mistake. Yet, this voice contains absolutely zero wisdom. It is pure auditory static. It is the chaotic friction between your dying broadcast and your incoming transmission. This is simply your historical vibration fabricating its most persuasive lie to stop you from turning the dial. Like any decaying system facing its own extinction, your old reality is constricting, amplifying its volume, and aggressively screaming to stay alive. Anxiety naturally peaks right at the boundary. However, this spike in dread does not mean the crossing is hazardous. It simply proves you have marched close enough to the edge to genuinely terrify your old programming. The sheer volume of your fear is mathematically proportional to your proximity to the transition. the more violently that internal critic screams that this is an illusion, the closer you are to the actual leap. And right now, you are standing directly on the line. Let me assure you, speaking with the absolute certainty of one who has successfully navigated this exact void, what awaits beyond that panic? The profound realization that it was authentic all along. This doesn't mean your new reality will perfectly match your daydreams. It never does. A genuine structural shift produces a reality that is vastly more intricate, astonishing, and radically authentic than anything your limited imagination could blueprint. It will be infinitely more tangible than your wildest hopes, perhaps more peculiar, yet undeniably sharper and more precisely aligned than the fantasy you held. But it is undeniably real. The quantum matrix is not a vacuum. The doorway does not lead to an abyss, and taking the leap will not leave you stranded. The existence waiting for you is not a fable, a hallucination, or a wish. It is a concrete state of operation that has eternally resided within your field of infinite potential, patiently waiting for your internal dial to synchronize with it so it can instantly materialize into your physical life. Your terror is simply the final checkpoint before the true portal. By fully absorbing that panic and marching relentlessly through it instead of backing down, you reach the actual gateway. Upon stepping through, you emerge into your new paradigm, and there, you will instantly recognize your true essence. You will comprehend that your arrival here was an absolute inevitability. Every fragmented piece of your journey, every painful defeat, every time you walked up to a boundary only to run away, every era of gathering strength was the mathematically precise route required to reach this exact coordinate. Not a single second was squandered. No choice was an error. Even your cowardly retreats generated the friction needed for this moment. You were magnetically drawn to this transition, even during the chapters you thought you were running the opposite way. Your trajectory was flawless. You were forever destined for this exact threshold. And here you stand, positioned at the unlatched door, during the closing moments of your 0-hour alert. If someone currently comes to mind who is also hovering at their own precipice, someone trapped in that disorienting purgatory between chapters, I urge you to send this broadcast to them. Absorbing this data in isolation activates a single quantum node. Distributing it to a fellow traveler ignites a massive chain reaction. By acting as the conduit for their breakthrough, the structural integrity of both your realities is exponentially fortified. As we transition into the final phase of this message, and as you navigate the crucial hours ahead, I want to equip you with an anchor. Let me articulate the exact mechanical framework of your impending leap with surgical precision. You are an active quantum observer. This is not a poetic analogy. It is literal physics. Your awareness acts as the specific machinery that forces infinite probability to solidify into concrete matter merely through the act of witnessing. The specific elements you pay attention to, the things you fixate upon, and your fundamental beliefs are the exact triggers that force one distinct outcome out of the infinite quantum matrix to solidify into your physical life. Your obsolete software continually manifested your previous limitations. Your upgraded vibration will naturally manifest your new existence. Taking the leap simply means shifting your point of focus. You don't achieve this through sheer willpower or by pretending to witness something invisible. Instead, you step across the boundary into a dimension where perceiving your upgraded life becomes an automatic reflex. You anchor into a wavelength where seeing your true potential requires zero strain. That is the fundamental function of the portal. It acts as a vibrational airlock. On your former side, restricted thinking is the default, guaranteeing restricted results. Beyond the doorway, expansive vision is the baseline, mathematically guaranteeing an expansive physical outcome. The transition is merely the physical relocation of your quantum vantage point. Once your lens has successfully migrated across that line, your former universe instantly begins to starve. That old construct relied entirely on your outdated focus to survive, and your vision is no longer broadcasting on that obsolete channel. This explains why a genuine leap is completely irreversible. It isn't that your past was violently annihilated. Rather, the architect keeping it alive you has abandoned the building. Starved of the vital attention required to maintain its structure, your history simply disintegrates. It won't vanish in a sudden cinematic explosion in the physical realm, but it will systematically and permanently dissolve as it bows to the authority of your new vibration. You are the master architect. The leap fundamentally rewrites your core. By rewriting your core, it alters your entire spectrum of perception, and by shifting your perception, it dictates entirely new physical manifestations. These are the strict quantum laws underpinning this ultimate broadcast. This is the exact reason today is so critical. This is why the current aperture is so vital. Right now, the synchronicity between your present vantage point and the precipice of your true vibration is at absolute peak intensity. The literal gap separating your current mindset from your optimal consciousness is microscopically thin. Bridging that tiny divide demands vastly less friction, kinetic output, and struggle today than it will at any future juncture in this cosmic loop. Throughout this entire disorienting purgatory you've endured, the cosmos has been methodically dragging you toward this precise edge. Every subtle nudge, every harsh ending, every serendipitous beginning, and every eerie moment of pregnant silence was a calculated cosmic maneuver. It was all designed to shrink the distance between your old lens and your upgraded reality. That gap is now completely closed. This 0-hour flare is your mandate to step over the line immediately. Let me outline the pragmatic protocol for the hours and days immediately following this message. We must cover the physical mechanics of the post-sleep environment and how to anchor yourself firmly in your upgraded wavelength while your physical surroundings slowly reconstruct themselves. The paramount directive is to stay highly vigilant against the magnetic drag of your past. After breaching a boundary, your historical baseline does not evaporate instantly. It persists like a ghost application eating up background memory on a hard drive while you try to run next-generation software. It will continue to ping you with archaic data, triggering incredibly familiar emotional responses. It will attempt to seduce you with the cozy illusion of certainty, the false security of stagnation, and the warmth of the predictable. Anticipate these attacks. They will manifest as crippling imposter syndrome, frantic second-guessing, and the sudden, terrifying paranoia that you committed a fatal error. You will suddenly convince yourself that your former cage wasn't actually that bad, and that leaving it was an act of pure self-sabotage. You will experience this as an intense craving to revive dead habits and resurrect outdated narratives about your identity. Ironically, these toxic patterns will suddenly look incredibly attractive the moment you successfully escape them. You must absolutely resist this gravity, not because your history is inherently evil or requires aggressive suppression, but because this temptation isn't a genuine option to rewind the clock. It is simply the death rattle of your obsolete operating system running its final diagnostic check before permanent deletion. If you surrender to that anxiety and scurry back across the line, you won't magically regain your old comfort zone. Instead, you will plunge yourself into agonizing energetic purgatory, a chaotic void where you are violently torn between two conflicting wavelengths, entirely incapable of resting in either. This era of turbulent static is never an instruction to hit reverse. It is a strict command to dig your heels in and hold the line. Therefore, when that familiar panic strikes, and it absolutely will simply observe it, do not wage war against it. Do not try to bury it, and do not fake toxic positivity. Just recognize its presence objectively, exactly as you would calmly note a passing rainstorm outside your window. Address it directly. I perceive you. I recognize your mechanics. You are simply outdated code running your termination sequence, and I refuse to engage. Once you've firmly dismissed it, immediately pivot your focus back to your upgraded vibration. Recall that profound sensation of relief, that absolute certainty of belonging you touched during your initial leap. Let that baseline state serve as your unbreakable tether, a quantum mooring that locks your vantage point firmly into your new reality. while the physical environment takes its time to reshape itself around you. The next crucial step is to operate continuously from this newly adopted wavelength. This doesn't demand theatrical life changes, burning bridges, or screaming your awakening from the rooftops. Instead, it requires tiny, relentless daily choices that naturally reflect your upgraded existence. These behaviors should feel like effortless breathing rather than a grueling grind, an expression of pure being instead of forced doing. Because your frequency is entirely unique to you, these actions will look different for everyone. Yet, their energetic signature is unmistakable. They feel infinitely lighter. It is the sensation of swimming effortlessly with the current, rather than fighting upstream against your own soul. They simply feel undeniably correct. Execute these choices relentlessly, no matter how insignificant they seem. In fact, prioritize the microscopic ones. A tiny step taken from a liberated state carries exponentially more cosmic weight than a massive leap taken out of fear. True power stems strictly from the energetic origin of the act, not its visible scale. Operating from this elevated coordinate is what forces the infinite quantum field to solidify into your desired physical outcomes. Make these subtle, aligned choices daily, and witness how rapidly your world morphs. Finally, to survive the turbulence of the static phase, you must internalize that you are not navigating this void alone. The quantum mechanics of awareness reveal a profoundly comforting truth. Consciousness never upgrades in a vacuum. We do not exist in segregated silos. We are woven into a singular, unified matrix of probability. Whenever a single mind leaps across a boundary, it sends structural shockwaves throughout the entire network. By successfully making your transition, you literally rewrite the universal grid. You establish a fresh harmonic baseline that empowers others to synchronize with it. Your individual victory mathematically lowers the resistance for anyone else approaching a similar leap. You are fueling cosmic evolution. In return, your current transition is being heavily subsidized by every soul who has braved this threshold before you. The matrix is saturated with the echoes of their courage. The exact doorway you face has been conquered previously, and the residual momentum of those past victories is actively pushing you forward right now. You are walking across a bridge fortified by the ancestors of this shift, while simultaneously paving the way for those who will follow. This is the invisible collective of boundary breakers. It requires no membership fee or physical gathering. It is a shared vibrational altitude you enter purely by crossing your own line. Tune into that massive, unseen support structure right now. Absorb the collective momentum of every awakening that preceded yours. You are entirely supported. The universe has your back, and the portal is unlocked. Now, let us decode the true meaning of midnight, mentioned in this transmission's title, the final alert before the 0 hour. In the physics of human awakening, midnight represents the absolute razor's edge, separating two distinct eras. It is the microscopic fraction of a second where a dead cycle formally terminates, and an unwritten one ignites. It embodies the absolute peak of the void, the furthest possible coordinate from both the dying sun of your past and the rising sun of your future. It is the exact instant where the old illumination has completely vanished and the fresh dawn has yet to break. It is the absolute apex of suspension, and it represents the very core of the transition. Every evolution possesses this 0 hour. Every era of accumulating potential leading to a massive shift must pass through this epicenter of absolute blackness and unparalleled possibility. It is the precise coordinate where your obsolete existence hits its absolute breaking point, and your newly evolved state is fully primed to take over. You are currently standing in this 0 hour. This is not the blackness of failure, desperation, or an impending crash. This is the profound dark of ultimate capability, the necessary void right before the sun breaks the horizon. This 0 hour does not signify the termination of your journey. Rather, it is the razor-thin bridge connecting the death of the old epic to the birth of the new. This final broadcast before the 0 hour is the universe sounding the alarm that the bridge is ready. The gateway is completely unsealed. You have hit the coordinate of maximum leverage. The trajectory of your past has completely exhausted its momentum, and your upgraded reality is fully powered and waiting. Cross the threshold right now, not because the void is hazardous, but because the void itself is the door. This 0 hour is the ultimate synchronization between your current location and your final destination. It is the resonance anomaly operating at peak capacity. It is the exact intersection the cosmos has been driving you toward with every subtle hint, every painful closure, every new dawn, and every silent, magnetic tug. This is your 0 hour, and the portal is unlocked. We need to examine the landscape beyond this darkness. We must define the true texture of the dawn that follows this specific leap. A crucial component of successfully crossing the boundary is developing a visceral sense of what awaits you on the other side. Not the logistical minutia, but the raw energetic signature and the inherent quality of the realm beyond the door. The sunrise following a quantum leap isn't a slow, fading twilight. The leap itself is an instantaneous boundary crossing. The 0 hour blackness doesn't gradually dilute into gray, then a pale haze, and eventually full daylight. You snap across the line, and the fundamental nature of your reality inverts immediately. That paralyzing suspension vanishes. The agonizing sensation of hovering between two universes evaporates. The feeling of being trapped in a hallway, no longer your old self, but not quite your new self, is permanently extinguished. In its place, absolute lucidity arrives. This isn't the superficial clarity of suddenly possessing a flawless blueprint for the rest of your life. You won't magically know every future twist and turn. Instead, it is the profound clarity of finally inhabiting your true wavelength. It is the peace of operating from your authentic baseline. It is the power of observing the universe from the correct coordinate, the one that feels effortlessly and undeniably yours. Anchored in this lucidity, your immediate trajectory becomes obvious. The entire road won't illuminate in a single flash of divine inspiration. Rather, it reveals itself sequentially, much like navigating a dense forest at night. The very next step is clear, and the subsequent step only reveals itself once the first has been taken. Once you are past the 0 hour, the journey becomes entirely navigable. From this upgraded vantage point, obstacles that seemed insurmountable under your old paradigm suddenly dissolve. This isn't because your physical environment instantly rearranged itself, remember. The material world operates with a lag. This happens purely because your point of observation has mutated. You, as the quantum observer, have crossed the line, meaning the physical realities you are now extracting from the matrix of probability are fundamentally different. On the other side of this transition, you will magnetically draw in the individuals who align with your upgraded reality. This remains one of the most astonishing side effects of a phase shift. It instantly recalibrates your relational field. The boundary you crossed not only rewrites your inner landscape, but alters the type of consciousness you attract. Your prior frequency acted as a sieve, filtering in connections that reinforced your limitations. Your new wavelength acts as an entirely different sieve, exclusively pulling in experiences and individuals that match your elevated state. Post-leap, your social sphere will fundamentally restructure. You will attract the cast members required for this new era. Surprisingly, you may already know some of them. They might be people currently in your periphery, individuals you couldn't truly bond with previously because your outdated vibration caused static interference. Once the leap is complete, that static vanishes, allowing genuine connection to finally take root. Connections that were once mere possibilities now solidify into reality. You may not even know these individuals yet, but your upgraded vibration will magnetically pull them into your orbit. This requires absolutely zero networking, plotting, or desperate seeking. It happens purely through harmonic resonance. Because your quantum vantage point has shifted to their exact wavelength, you naturally illuminate on their radar, and they on yours. Your true tribe will inevitably locate you. The correct vibration always summons its match. Once past the 0 hour, Your labor transforms into pure self-expression. This is arguably the most profound yet difficult evolution to articulate. Whatever your worldly contribution entails, it ceases to be a mere task you execute and morphs into a fundamental extension of who you are. The grueling sensation of forcing a boulder up a mountain evaporates. It doesn't become entirely devoid of exertion. You still engage, create, and expend kinetic energy. However, the motive force flips from theatrical obligation to authentic outpouring. You are no longer manufacturing output to satisfy an external demand. You are simply allowing your deepest truth to spill over. This outpouring becomes pure elation. I don't mean the brittle, circumstantial happiness tethered to applause, metrics, or worldly success. I mean a profound, architectural serenity born from absolute alignment with your own soul. This bliss doesn't demand perfect circumstances because it isn't tethered to external events. It is the default setting of your true baseline. It is the raw biological sensation of occupying the most harmonious, frictionless version of yourself. That exact serenity is lingering just past the threshold. It has been patiently standing by forever. The pathway is clear. Make the jump right now. Before we conclude this broadcast, I must equip you with one final truth. There is a crucial element of this quantum leap we haven't entirely unpacked, a detail that is incredibly easy to overlook yet absolutely vital to grasp. The transition is strictly irreversible. I have mentioned this previously, but it demands absolute clarity. This permanence is not a threat. It is the ultimate blessing of the leap. It provides a level of bulletproof security that your former existence could never offer. In your previous paradigm, every action carried an undo button. Choices could be revoked. Progress could be easily abandoned the second the growing pains became unbearable. That obsolete territory sold you the false comfort of the escape hatch, the permanent option to bail out and regress to your old self. But that escape route wasn't actual safety. It was the very engine of your endless purgatory. It fueled the agonizing loop, marching to the precipice only to flee, hoarding spiritual momentum only to bleed it dry, dancing on the edge without ever taking flight. It kept you imprisoned in that suffocating hallway between chapters, paralyzed, unable to commit to either reality. The ability to turn back is exactly what kept you trapped in the maze. The permanence of the leap is what finally shatters the maze. When you genuinely, structurally, and quantum mechanically step over that boundary, your prior universe caves in, not through violent destruction, but because the consciousness that fed it has relocated. Starved of your attention, the old architecture simply cannot survive. It inevitably and utterly decays, even if the physical world takes a moment to reflect the rubble. This decay is your greatest asset. Once that obsolete structure crumbles, retreating becomes physically impossible, even in moments of weakness. The backward path vanishes. The emergency exit is bricked over. The comforting doorway to your past solidifies into an impenetrable barricade. And as you stand before that barricade, breathing the air of your newly conquered reality, a profound realization hits you, one that was invisible from the other side. You suddenly understand that this barricade is absolute liberation. The destruction of your retreat route isn't a tragedy. It marks the definitive slaughter of the cycle. It is the triumphant climax of all your preparation. It is the final cure for your paralyzing hesitation. It signifies your true arrival, your permanent, unalterable landing in the existence you have been desperately marching toward for years. The permanence is the prize. Hearing that door slam shut behind you is the ultimate victory. The point of no return is your salvation. Because here, on the other side of the void, with your history dismantled and your true vibration firmly rooted, you experience a magnitude of freedom you have never tasted. You are liberated from the endless loop. You are immune to the gravity of your past. You are permanently excused from the exhausting theater of your former life. You are liberated to exist fully and unconditionally. You are finally unleashed to embody the exact version of yourself that has forever been parked just past this boundary. That unconditional liberation is the true target of this ultimate cosmic broadcast. That unchained existence is exactly what the open aperture grants you access to. That exact freedom is what the 0 hour serves as a doorway to. The barrier is dropped. The time frame is immediate. The transition is completely accessible to you right now, directly through this transmission, in the final fleeting moments of your current 0 hour. Take the leap. Now, as we bring this final communication to a close, let me distill it down to its most fundamental essence. Stripping away the quantum physics, the philosophical metaphors, the storytelling, and the practical exercises, we arrive at the naked, undeniable reality of this exact microsecond. You have been hovering at this precipice far longer than your conscious mind comprehends. You have been quietly stockpiling the kinetic energy for this specific leap through every single chapter of your existence. Through every sunrise, every bitter defeat, every boundary you march toward, every cowardly retreat, and every endless loop of almost grabbing what felt perpetually out of reach. All of it was merely turning up the heat on the water. All of it was a calculated march toward the void. Every second of your life was the training ground for this exact heartbeat, and that heartbeat has arrived. The portal is unsealed. The temporal aperture is at its absolute widest point. The cosmic harmony is flawless. The opportunity to cross is actively live. And this ultimate alert, this specific broadcast intercepting your timeline right before the anomaly collapses, is delivering one singular, undeniable fact. You are primed. Not primed meaning you suddenly possess an omniscient roadmap, zero anxiety, or a flawless understanding of your future. You are primed in a strictly quantum sense. You are primed because you have generated the precise electrical charge necessary to trigger the phase shift. You are primed because your internal thermometer has finally struck the exact degree required for total reinvention. You are primed because your internal vibration is locked in perfect sync with the reality waiting just beyond the barrier. You are mathematically ready. The cosmos has been sculpting you for this specific breakthrough since the day you were born. And this final flare is reality confirming that the construction phase is officially terminated. The energy reserves are full. The window is stretched to its limits. The gateway is a massive, gaping hole. The environmental variables are immaculate. The frequency is a perfect match. Cross the line. Do it today. Do it right now. And when you execute that maneuver, when you draw that defining breath, uncurl your fingers from your obsolete past. Shift your center of mass forward rather than violently retreating, and step decisively through the void to land on foreign soil. Absorb this absolute truth. The cosmos will be waiting for you there. It won't meet you there to hand out a gold star or validate your bravery. It will meet you there because that is the fundamental nature of existence. It is perpetually evolving through your consciousness. It is expanding its own boundaries through your courage. The universe is actively crossing its own cosmic thresholds through the highly specific, utterly unrepeatable, singular quantum leap that is your current life. The fabric of reality will greet you on the other side. You will instantly recognize your truest self. You will possess the unshakable certainty that your arrival at this exact coordinate was always inevitable. The locked portal will vanish into your history. Your upgraded existence will become your permanent, solitary reality. The brilliant sun following the 0 hour will completely flood your sky, and you will, finally, be entirely at home. The barrier is dropped. The 0 hour is live. The ultimate alert has been delivered and received. Make the leap. If this broadcast intercepted you during a moment of profound quiet, save it. Revisit this transmission the next time you find yourself at an intimidating precipice. Its words will decode entirely differently once you are listening from a higher altitude. And if you know a fellow traveler currently lost in that agonizing, disorienting hallway between chapters, forward this to them immediately. You might literally be the physical conduit the universe is deploying to spark their awakening. Drop into the comments section and declare it. What is the specific threshold you are currently staring down? Name the boundary you can visibly sense but have been too terrified to articulate. The cosmos has been trying to establish a dialogue with you long before you clicked on this broadcast, and that hidden conversation is infinitely deeper than you suspect. The subsequent video detailing the universe's specific communication methods and what it signifies when those whispers escalate into undeniable roars is the natural progression for the new reality you just stepped into. It is already queued up and waiting for you.